Yo, what is up, everybody? I'm back with another video. I hope you're doing okay. Today I'm gonna be reacting to why I still love Sonic Forces. This was recommended by a really good friend. His name is Ryan the Hedgehog. I will put his channel in the description. Check it out. And if you liked how I reacted to this video, let me know in the comments down below. But yeah, let's get started.
I recently replayed the entire main campaign of Sonic Forces to answer one question. Do I really love the Sonic Forces like I've been telling myself? Is Sonic Forces actually a bad or a mediocre game like everyone's been telling me? Okay, well,
Honestly, I think Sonic Forces is a pretty good game. The thing that I like is like it brings back some old stages like Chemical Plant or Green Hill, but like Green Hill is basically more destroyed, but it's still a pretty good stage. Also with Chemical Plant, and it comes with the avatar that you can create. But yeah,
that's two questions, but the answers are yes, I do. I love Sonic Forces even now. And no, I actually think that Sonic Forces is a good game, one that's well designed in a lot of ways that I think people tend to gloss over. It's okay to disagree. This is my experience, this is my opinion. Your mileage may vary.
honestly, I would give the game like an A tier. I don't know what y'all would think, but it's a pretty good game to play. Like Ryan said, there's not a problem with it. It's just a pretty simple game to play. But yeah.
Now, I do realize that saying that Sonic Forces is designed well seems like a bold claim to make, but let me explain why I think that. It's important to remember that Sonic is first and foremost a series for kids and young teens. After all, this game is rated E10+, so it's not exactly targeting the older people that grew up with Sonic in particular. Now, it does do a lot to try to appeal to that older crowd with some more experience in the series, but as is the case with most Sonic games, it's primarily designed with kids in mind. This game comes with an easier difficulty mode for that exact reason. When you start a new game, the game specifically asks if you've ever played a Sonic game before. And for a 10-year-old, the answer is a lot more likely to be no than it would be for a grown adult.
So what he said is basically true. There is basically a mode where you can choose like easy, like if you have never played a Sonic game in your life and this is like your first time trying to play like a modern Sonic type game, or there's like a mode, another mode that you can choose that basically you're used to playing a whole lot of Sonic games like in the modern era. But yeah.
When I first played the game myself, I was 26 years old, and I had played many Sonic games before and was
Well, my first Sonic game would be at least Sonic Unleashed. No, actually, Generations, and then went on to Unleashed. Because Generations was my very first modern Sonic game I've ever played in my lifetime.
quite good at a lot of them. But I hadn't played many of them in quite some time, so I was a little rusty. But yes, I had played Sonic games before, so I chose the harder difficulty. A common criticism of Sonic Forces is that it's too easy even on the harder difficulty. But for me, playing the game after not considering myself a fan of the series for quite some time, it did manage to challenge me in a good few areas the first time around. The most common criticism of this game's design is centered around how linear modern Sonic's levels are, being called boost to win. And for a lot of these levels, I'll admit that's true. They're pretty linear and a lot more automated than Sonic levels usually are in 3D.
In
The
which I
thing
can
is,
agree
you
to.
don't have to do what the game is primarily suggesting for you to do. Yes, boosting through the stage will get you most of the way through it with few obstacles, but if you don't do that, if you stop and look around, you'll find some sections that present a decent level of challenge that can reward you with things like alternate paths to complete the level faster or collectibles like red rings, number rings, and moon medals that unlock extra outfits and weapons.
To me, the red rings are pretty much hard to get, and especially those special rings that have the little numbers on it. Those are pretty hard to also get.
Stuff that you wouldn't find if you just boosted to the end. In fact, there's a red ring right before the end of Luminous Forest where you would just boost around to the end, but if you stop just before that, you can actually get a red ring that's kind of well hidden there because you would just think to go forward, you wouldn't think a ring would be hidden there. It's pretty interesting how it manages to do that. And getting S ranks is actually a lot more challenging than it is in Sonic Generations, for example. It's based on
True.
your score as a whole, which isn't based on any one factor, like completing the level without falling off or running out of rank. In
Right.
my personal experience, getting the S ranks in Sonic Generations was a lot easier than getting them in Sonic Forces, which ended up taking a good few tries and figuring out the best ways to get points. Now, that will get messed up if you have a mission bonus active, which increases your score and makes those higher ranks a little too easy. Most of the time, you won't have that bonus active. So, I will say that that mission bonus is at least a somewhat valid criticism of the ranking and scoring system, but that aside, overall, Sonic Forces is an easy game for kids, potential new Sonic fans to get into, but if you're older and more experienced with the series, it has a decent level of challenge if you know where to look
Right.
for that challenge. Outside of the game not being that challenging, there's a lot more criticism of the game, and I will say that some of it's deserved. Classic Sonic doesn't feel anything like you'd be used to. He doesn't feel like 2D Sonic normally does, or should for that matter. I do feel like it fits the level design well, though.
I feel like Generation Sonic is way better than Forces Sonic, even though Forces Sonic with the classic gives the drop dash. It just doesn't feel right. I feel like they should have probably added that to Generations, but in my opinion, it's just what do y'all think? Do you think Generations Classic Sonic is better or Forces Classic Sonic?
At the very least, and the level design consists of a lot more close platforming than 2D Sonic usually has. So the stiff controls and physics do make sense. I think that in terms of how the stages are designed, having the controls be like this was one of the better design decisions that could have been made, and for the parts where you can go fast, Classic Sonic has the drop dash, which gives you a decent good bit of speed, and it's
Right.
quite fun to use. That said, Classic Sonic is my least favorite playstyle in Sonic Forces, but I don't think it's badly designed, and I did have some fun with it. Moving on to a slightly more subjective criticism of the game, there's the story. I'll admit, the story could be a lot better, but people have said that this game is a contender for the worst story in the entire series, and given that Sonic Lost World came just before this game 4 years ago, I have to disagree. Sonic Lost World is not a bad game, but it has the worst story and writing of any Sonic game.
Well, to me, I never played Lost World. I mean, I watched videos on that game, people playing it, and the story. To me, it kind of feels a little all over the place. But with Forces, I feel like I would prefer um Forces than Lost World.
Game I've come across, in my opinion. And a lot of that is due to the Deadly Six and their obnoxious personalities. I don't hate Pontaff's style of writing, and I think they did a decent job with Sonic Colors, actually. But even Sonic Forces is a step up from what Sonic Lost World has to offer. Tails may be a coward in Sonic Forces, but he's not a completely unlikable character with zero redeeming qualities. He's not a total asshole and a jerk like he was
Right.
in Sonic Lost World. And where was this complaining about him being a coward when he flew away from the Gaia monsters in that cutscene in Sonic Unleashed without at least trying to put up some semblance of a fight? At least with Sonic being presumed dead for such a long time and Tails feeling like he played a big part in that, it's understandable he'd lose at least some of his confidence and his courage. For my most recent playthrough, I skipped the cutscenes only because I wanted to get to the main gameplay, which I think is actually quite a bit of fun. One thing I've all heard almost no one criticize about this game is the music, and I have to say, it has some real bangers. I never associated Sonic with dubstep before I played Sonic Forces, but the Metal Sonic boss fight music, for one example, is actually really good.
To me, my favorite music from Sonic Forces will be Fist Bump and hmm, the theme of Infinite. Those are my top tier favorite songs.
It gets me hyped. It's a nice twist on one of Sonic CD's most iconic tracks with a vibe that fits both the fight and Metal Sonic surprisingly well. Then there's Fist Bump, the game's main theme, which is a great listen to despite having some of the dumbest lyrics for a vocal theme ever, and the Avatar's vocal tracks are actually pretty deep. The lyrics convey a sense of urgency and danger, and the melodies themselves are really good. And speaking of the avatar, these are probably the best levels in the entire game. You start with choosing the species of your character, which also determines their abilities, as well as their general appearance. Your first weapon you get is a flamethrower that also doubles as a way to harness wisp powers to do a bunch of midair jumps and get to high places. You earn more weapons later on in.
So there are different wisp powers that you can use with your avatar based on the weapon. There's fire, there's lightning, there's cube. I believe there's also void, but my favorite one is lightning because it makes you go a little quicker when you have it equipped.
The game for completing stages and getting S ranks, and as you do that, you unlock more abilities like an electric whip that lets you dash through paths of rings and enemies, a drill that lets you blast through enemies and get insane speed almost instantly,
I also forgot drill. That's something I kind of forgot, but he said it.
and climb up walls, gun that shoots wind at enemies and lets you fly through the air, and a lot more. While some of these avatar weapons are better than others, each of them has their own benefits, and there are some rings and medals you can't get unless you have a specific one equipped, so you're encouraged to unlock more of them. So, yeah, me saying that I love Sonic Forces shouldn't be surprising. But I also think that a lot of its design goes underappreciated and that it's actually a good game, though a bit rough around the edges. And like I said, all this stuff is my opinion and you're allowed to disagree. I'm not trying to convince you that Sonic Forces is a good game, but I want you to understand why I personally think that it is. So hopefully you enjoyed watching, whether you agree or disagree with my takes. And if you did enjoy watching, feel free to like the video down below and subscribe if you want to see more like it, or see me live stream once in a while. You can become a member for only 99 cents to support my content and get special perks, or leave a super thanks down below for $2. And while any additional support is definitely appreciated, the fact that you went out of your way to listen to.
So that was my reaction to why I still love Sonic Forces. If you liked how me and Ryan and our opinions, if you guys liked it, let me know down in the comments below, and subscribe if you haven't. Turn on post notifications. But yeah, this is Gamers Entertainment, and I will see you around. Peace.